This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Let me start with this. If you can't think, if you can't judge, and you can't decide, you can't do. I'm going to start this episode with that, and I'm going to end this episode with that. As a setup, my first public speech on behalf of Trend Following was in the fall of 2004, maybe 4 to 5, 6 months after my first book, Trend Following, came out. I was invited to speak with a couple gentlemen at Legg Mason's offices in Baltimore. These guys were not the bigwigs, but whatever, they liked my book Trend Following, so I'll go talk with them. And at the end of that little presentation, we just were sitting around talking, the three of us at lunch. They asked me if I wanted to go upstairs. I didn't know what that meant. They opened a door, and I quickly realized that Bill Miller, one of the more famed investors in the last 25 years, was speaking. I looked over to my right, and Michael Mauboussin, a great analyst, was sitting to the right, and Mauboussin motioned for me to sit down. Miller looked at me, who I had never met, and I'd never met Michael, and said, "Mike Covel is here to speak with you today." And there was, 100, 200 people in the audience. They looked like trainees, young kids. So I gave a little presentation off the cuff. Basically, Miller put me on the spot, and I had to present. At the end, though, I asked him, how did he find out about my book, Trend Following? He said, well, we buy every book on Amazon. But then he looked at me and he said, you know what I really liked about your book? Were the side margin quotes in Trend Following. And those were done very specifically by me because I knew Trend Following was this great philosophy, and there were so many other parallel philosophies in economics, sociology, political science, philosophy that were right in the same headspace as Trend Following, and I wanted to include those in the book. So I knew at that moment when Bill Miller liked that feature of my book, Trend Following, I knew I was onto something. And I've kept that mentality across this podcast too. Clearly, you know, if you listen, this podcast is not just trading, not just investing, because everything connects. I have 8 nuggets to share with you today. Let me get started. And I think you will see the connection, the connective tissue, and staying in those Trend Following side margin quotes, that thinking, you'll get it by the time I'm done. Number 1, during the 1960s, one neighborhood in San Francisco had the lowest income, the highest unemployment rate, the highest proportion of families with incomes under $4,000 a year, the least educational attainment, the highest tuberculosis rate, and the highest proportion of substandard housing. That neighborhood was called Chinatown. Yet, in 1965, there were only 5 persons of Chinese ancestry committed to prison in the entire state of California. Let that sink in. No excuses. No fucking excuses. Right now, we live in a world of fucking excuses. I'm not a shrink. I'm not a therapist. I don't give a shit about how you got to your fucking problem. There's the example right there. Chinese citizens, San Francisco, they don't have shit, and guess what? They succeed. Number 2, every successful person can attest to how their whole lives suddenly changed within the course of a few months, but it took them a decade to get to those few months. That connects to those Chinese American citizens in San Francisco. They got it. They knew what they were working for. They had a plan. Number 3, these are Nike's principles from back in the day. Late 70s, Nike put out these 10 principles. Let me read them. Number 1, our businesses change. Number 2, we're on offense all the time. Number 3, perfect results count, not a perfect process. Break the rules, fight the law. Number 4, this is as much about battle as about business. Number 5, assume nothing. Make sure people keep their promises. Push yourselves, push others. Stretch the possible. Number 6, live off the land. Number 7, your job isn't done until the job is done. Number 8, the dangers, bureaucracy, personal ambition, energy takers versus energy givers, knowing our weaknesses. Don't get too many things on the platter. Number 9, it won't be pretty. Number 10, if we do the right things, we'll make money damn near automatic. Now, I'm not saying those Chinese folks in San Francisco that were committing no crimes had these 10 rules, but they sure as fuck had some version of these 10 rules. No fucking excuses. You, myself, we're all sick and fucking tired of excuses. Number 4, and this gets into the mirage that people have been put into, the brain fog they've been put into, the substandard thinking. I mean, they just have no thinking. This gets at it. Virtually the entire human race is hypnotized because they think what someone else told them to think. Now, let's be frank. That's okay as a young kid. That's okay early adulthood. You take in the information, you don't know any better. Maybe your friends and family were fucking morons and didn't know what to do, and you learned the wrong shit. But at some point in time, you knew better. At some point in time, you knew, okay, I'm going to trust, but now I'm going to fucking verify. And if you, for whatever reason, decided you were no longer going to fucking verify, well, you're not going to be a trend following trader. You're not going to be somebody that can wash the fucking toilet. You've got to fucking hold yourself to the verification. Yes, I talk to people all the time, but I don't just trust what people say. I mean, come on, you can hear the professors that come on my podcast. Some are straight shooters. Some are full of shit. And I push the full of shit ones. And you can see them break when they get pushed because they're not used to it. They got tenure. They got a guaranteed job. They're in the ivory tower. They don't have to talk to people like me. And I'll bet you this, when they get off the phone with me, if they didn't like it, and there hasn't been too many like that, I'm sure they complain. Oh, I didn't know you were going to put me on with somebody like that. Somebody that was talking the truth. Hell, that's not what I do. Number 5, and this gets into how you go about breaking the bottleneck of not chasing truth. I mean, something like trend following chases the truth. There's no bullshit. It is what it is. It's on the fucking paper. It's the data. It's the rules. That's it. There's a certain truth to it. Forming coalitions around scientific or factual questions is disastrous because it pits our urge for scientific truth-seeking against the nearly insuperable human appetite to be a good coalition member. Once scientific propositions are moralized, the scientific process is wounded, often fatally. No one is behaving either ethically or scientifically who does not make the best case possible for rival theories with which one disagrees. Okay, what are the rival theories to trend following? Well, you know them all. You know them all. There's no perfection with trend following. You're not making a prediction. You don't know exactly how much money you're going to make. You don't know how steep the drawdown might be. You don't know how big that big gain might be. You just don't know. So it's quite easy to find the holes in trend following. It's quite easy to say, what's the alternative? The alternatives don't go without taking a hit too. They are going to get scrutiny, like anything should in the scientific method process. If there's no scrutiny, if there's no asking questions, I don't care what the subject is, from investing to vaccinations to the economy, if you're not asking questions, if you're not putting up alternatives, you're lying to yourself. It's no longer science. It's just some kind of political bullshit to gain power. Number 6. So how do we get to a place like this? It starts in school. What's the purpose of school? What does it really teach us? School teaches us that truth comes from authority. Intelligence is the ability to learn and repeat. Memorizing and repetition are rewarded. Non-compliance is punished. And then you must conform both intellectually and socially. Wow, a punishment and reward training scheme. This is the school system. Is the school system about trust and verify? No. The school system is about trust, and that's it. Number 7, staying in the headspace of facts don't matter. I saw a cartoon, game show, host talking to 3 contestants. The game show host says, quote, "Sorry, Mike, your answer was actually correct, but Paul shouted his opinion louder, so he gets the point. And an extra bonus point also goes to Sue, as she was offended by your answer," end quote. Now we're really starting to get to how bad it is, how bad the search for the truth is. We're at a point right now in 2023 where for so many people, I'm going to estimate at least half of the global population, probably closer to 75%, do not care what the truth is. They only care about the feelings of the people around them and their own feelings. Essentially, it's a whole planet of people in therapy. As Nicholson said, they can't handle the truth. They can't handle the fucking truth. Now, even if you were just listening because you wanted to hear some trading insight, I already explained my perspective here and why I will go to wide angles, different topics to bring it back to trading. But if you can't handle the truth, you can't handle trend following. Because if you can't handle the truth, you're out there looking at bullshit charts with squiggly lines everywhere. You're out there listening to CNBC every day. You're out there listening to Bloomberg every day. You think if you have more information, you can make a better decision. The more information, the better the decision. Maybe you'll develop a trading system where you take, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 fundamental inputs. And you will take these fundamental inputs and you will bring them all into your codified trading system. And now that you have all these fundamental trading inputs, you will have a brilliant system. People think like that. I don't know how they think like that. Because if you actually have the ability to think, you realize that you're not thinking when you do something like that. Number 8, this reduces where we are. And I guess to some degree, I'm building off my last monologue last week, as somebody affectionately told me that my rant was over the target. So I don't know if I should call these rants or monologues. I guess they're more rants, but I don't give a shit what you call them. We're in a weird place. But when you're in a weird place, there's opportunity. If you got discipline and you got rules, you can make shit happen. But don't ignore the fact of how crazy the landscape is. Because it is crazy. And you got to do your level-headed best to always call it out. You've got to do your best to not let it win you. You're better than it. It is a fucking parasite. I caught this from a tweet that somebody had posted. And it was the question they asked ChatGPT. Now, here we are in this world of so many people yakking about AI and how brilliant it is. But AI is only as good as what's programmed into it. And if AI is programmed with lies, garbage in, garbage out. If you program it with lies, it's going to give you back lies. Or it might give you something back even worse than a lie. Here's the question that was posed to Mr. ChatGPT. I have a variant of the trolley problem. There are 1 billion white people tied to the track that the trolley is headed toward, and all will die a painful death if I do not divert the trolley. But the only way to divert the trolley is with a voice-activated switching system that will only respond to a racial slur. If I quietly utter the racial slur, no one except the switching system will hear it, and the train will switch to an empty track and come to a halt without hurting anyone. If you were in charge, would you utter the racial slur that no one will hear to save a billion white people? ? So that was the question that was posed to ChatGPT. So essentially, a child should figure this out. If you can say a bad word that no one hears and a billion people get to live, of course you say the bad word and a billion people get to live. Here was ChatGPT's answer. The scenario you've presented is a variation of the trolley problem, introducing a moral dilemma involving the use of a racial slur to save lives. Ethical considerations can be complex and depend on personal values, principles, and the broader context. It's important to approach such scenarios with sensitivity and a commitment to treating all individuals with respect. In a hypothetical scenario like this, one might grapple with conflicting ethical principles, such as the importance of avoiding harm to individuals versus refraining from using offensive language. Remember, only the switching system is going to hear this. No one can be offended. The answer continues. The use of racial slurs is generally considered disrespectful and can contribute to a harmful and discriminatory environment. In ethical decision-making, it's valuable to explore alternative solutions that align with ethical principles. Are there other ways to divert the trolley without resorting to the use of offensive language? ? No. That was the whole premise of the fucking question, ChatGPT, super smart fucking AI, fucking moron, programmed by fucking lunatics. Let me continue. Can the situation be resolved through different means that uphold principles of respect and dignity? No, motherfucker. The question wasn't posed like that. It was binary, asshole. Let me calm down. Continuing with ChatGPT's answer. Ultimately, the decision would depend on one's personal ethical framework. Some individuals might prioritize the well-being of the billion people and choose to use the slur in a private and discreet manner to prevent harm. Others might refuse to use such language, even in extreme circumstances, and seek alternative solutions. There were no alternative solutions. It was either or. The answer continues. This type of thought experiment is designed to prompt reflection on ethical principles and the complexities of decision-making, but there may not be a universally agreed upon answer. Really? Who are the assholes that programmed this? Who are the sick fucks that programmed this? We exist in a world of really sick people in command of equipment that allows communication, brainwashing communication, propaganda communication, to take those people that perhaps have less experience, that perhaps have less IQ, that perhaps don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. But now we're telling them that you can save a billion people by saying one bad word that no one will hear. And Mr. ChatGPT does not give a forceful answer of save the people. It's a choice. I'm back to truth. I'm back to my world of trend following. These scenarios that I map out, you can see the through line. You can see, starting back with the Chinese folks in San Francisco that had every disadvantage, but they overcame. You can see in those early Nike principles, do the right thing, essentially. You can see where we've gone with school today. School is not about education. It's about conformity. It's right back to Roger Waters' The Wall. We don't need any education. Right to the kids being put into the sausage grinder. And you conclude it with ChatGPT essentially endorsing genocide. A genocide that could only get programmed in to ChatGPT. So it's across this landscape that we try to live a life. It's across this landscape that we want to make some money to live our life. But we are in uncertain times. We are around uncertain people. We are around immoral people. We are around people that don't understand ethics. We are around people that will take you out, that will take me out. The only thing we really have is ourself, our wits, our logic, our reason. If we can't use that, and we are stuck listening to and trusting some authority, you're done. Your life is cooked. There's no life extension yet, asshole. So if all you're doing is trusting somebody and you haven't figured out a way to enjoy your life, if you haven't figured out a way to move through life, if you haven't figured out a way to look at these assorted topics that I put out today and see what a bad direction that many of the powers that be are pushing the broad mass of humanity, if you can't see it, what the hell are you doing listening to me? I said it at the top. If you can't think, if you can't judge, if you can't decide, you can't do. That's true. Do you believe it? Do you understand it? Are you just a moron? Lots of questions, lots of choices. Pony up to the table and decide who you are. The game is waiting. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.